we go. Deck 78.
Well, we just grabbed a table here on Deck 78. It's Mark A. Altman. I'm here again with Daren Dochterman.
Have a seat.
Have a seat. Have a drink.
Let's
you?
Let's reminisce about the times that we spent on 1313 Mockingbird Lane.
Indeed. We Ashley and I had the chance to sit down recently with Butch Patrick and talk about his experiences, not only on the Munsters, but I was thrilled to be able to talk a little bit about Chuck Jones's The Phantom Toll Booth.
Well, that's true. And, of course, Lidsville.
Well, we talked about that as well. I think you would be quite delighted.
How's that for a topper?
I loved that Lidsville as a kid. I used to watch that.
I found it the creepiest show ever.
It was so crazy. You know, we really should change Deck 78 to the Sid and Marty Krofft Adventure Hour because, of course, we seem to be spending a lot of time on Sid and Marty Krofft. We're a regular
Krofft super show.
Indeed we are. Indeed we are. Yeah, you know, it was interesting talking to Butch Patrick. I'll be honest, I wasn't sure, you know, talking about Eddie Munster, how much there would be to talk about, but he turned out to be a very interesting conversation, I must say.
Yeah. Did he talk at all about the kid who played Eddie before he did?
Not really, but we talked also about George Barris and the drag racer. It's something that Butch continues to be very excited about. It's interesting when I first got out of college and was working at a talent agency, Al Lewis was one of our clients.
Sure.
And, you know, it was a big deal. Grandpa Munster, he was a big voiceover guy. And I think he was running for mayor at that time, too, if I'm not mistaken. Wow. And he had a restaurant. This was interesting. He had a restaurant. You remember in New York, he had a restaurant called Grandpa's?
I don't remember that because I think I probably was gone by that time. We left.
But you probably were out here already. But Grandpa's, it's out. I didn't know this until recently, was a front for the mob.
Nice.
Yeah, I think the Gambino crime family for money laundering or something. I'd like to see that version of Goodfellas with Al Lewis and Grandpa's restaurant.
It's a good family place.
Yeah. And the bouncer at the door is Fred Gwynn.
Oh my God, that's
yeah. But you know, there's a lot of things people say. Oh, Sean Connery, Roger Moore, White Sox or Cubs. Back in the day, it was the Addams Family versus the Munsters.
Yeah.
Did you have a favorite?
I love them both. I love them both. I watched the Munsters crazily over and over again, and I remember the Zombo episode, the one where Eddie likes the TV horror host better than his dad, and he finds he's all a big fake. It's great, but I also love the Addams Family, and I watched that endlessly on Channel 11.
Well, no, Addams Family was Channel 5.
Was 5, yes.
The Munsters was Channel 11.
Yeah.
Which is why I liked it, because it was on the same channel as Star Trek.
Sure.
And, you know, I sort of turned Channel 11 on in the late afternoon, you know, for Batman and Star Trek and the Munsters and Star Trek. And then, you know, that would be over and it would be like Mission Impossible or, or you know, The Odd Couple. And, you know, you could just watch Channel 11 all day.
Channel 5 had Addams Family and Brady Bunch.
That's true. They did. And Channel 9 had nothing but Kiner's Corner. Had the Mets. That was it.
Yeah, and the Joe Franklin. And the Joe Franklin.
Channel 9 sucked. Yeah, Channel 9 was the worst. I mean, you know, they had what? They had the $1 Million movie, but it was really usually like the 12-cent movie.
Yeah.
Because they never had the good movies. You know, the good movies were on Channel 11 and Channel 5. Yeah.
It's crazy how much we remember those things.
It is, and we totally remember the Munsters. Did you see Munsters Go Home in the theater? I never saw that.
I didn't see it in the theater. No, I saw it later on TV, and yeah, it's fine. It's not as good as the show because I don't like it in color. I don't like the Munsters in color.
Yeah, that's why all the revival films were not interesting. I also think that Munsters work best in a half-hour format, 20-minute, 25 minutes.
I think so too.
It's been a slight. It's even Addams Family had a little more substance to it because of coming from the cartoon, from the Charles Addams cartoon.
Addams Family was a little more witty.
Yeah. But Munsters was fun, and I love that cast. Fred Gwynne was great.
Oh my God! Amazing performances, and so. Using that word that you hate to use, iconic.
Well, it's worth mentioning, since we are a Trek adjacent podcast, that there is a Star Trek connection with the Munsters. The original idea, when it was developed by Gene L. Coon.
Really?
Yeah. Gene L. Coon developed the Munsters. He doesn't get credit for it. But his manager, when we were interviewing him, said this. He'd been hired by Universal to develop, came up with the idea for the Munsters.
Because it's basically the Donna Reed show,
right? Exactly. But and that's why they get the credit for it. But
interesting.
But yeah, Gene L. Coon was the father of the Munsters.
Do you know the Spielberg connection?
I do not.
The theme and the incidental music to the Munsters was written by
Johnny Williams?
No.
Who?
The father of Frank Marshall.
Oh, is that right? Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
I love that music.
It's great. It's great. And even the incidental music with the dun 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 boom.
Oh, yeah.
Boom, boom, boom. It's just so good.
You remember when in the 90s that song Uma Thurman sampled the Munsters theme? I Want to Dance Like Uma Thurman. And then it goes dun 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 dun.
Wow. No, I don't remember that.
Yeah,
I remember Whatever Happened to Eddie. He's the king of Mockingbird Lane.
Dun, dun, dun. This would be a good place to play an excerpt from the song, but unfortunately now they don't allow you to use that on the podcast.
Not allowed.
Anymore. So we can't do that. So we can just hum it
But what we can do is play the recording you guys made.
Let's do it. Because Ashley and I sat down with Butch Patrick back in Nightmare Weekend Richmond, and we hope you enjoy this. We'll be back after these brief commercial messages with Butch Patrick. And he's Butch, man. He's Butch.
Hey, it's Paris. I love sparkly things, right? Like stars. Duh. And thanks to Hilton and AutoCamp, I just slept under them. Picture me, serving looks by the fire outside my luxurious Airstream, making s'mores with the kids, while a national park is our backdrop. The great outdoors meets Hilton hospitality. That's hot. Explore all the new ways to stay at Hilton.com. Hilton for the stay.
9 años pidiendo el Snack Wrap. Aquí tienes tu Snack Wrap. ¿Tú quieres un Snack Wrap? Toma tu Snack Wrap. ¿Tú también? Toma un Snack Wrap. Snack Wrap, Snack Wrap, Snack Wrap. Volvió el Snack Wrap. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
This school year, let the Walmart app ace your kid's favorite subject, snack time. With Nature Valley Crunchy Granola and Danimals smoothies they'll actually wake up for. Craft Lunchables for a truly refined cafeteria palate, or Gatorade for when they take Capture the Flag a bit too seriously. Get all their on-the-go cravings delivered right to your door, just in time for that opening bell. New school year, all the snacks. The Walmart you thought you knew is now new.
Got some good news for your ears. More of that good stuff is coming up. And even better news for your hair. The best hair care is at Sephora. They've got all kinds of products for every kind of hair. From brands like Amika, Kerastase, Day, and K18. You knew where to get great audio. Now, you know where to get great hair care, too. Sephora. Good news for great hair. Shop hair care now at Sephora.com.
And we're really excited because we've never had the chance to sit down with our next guest. And there's so much to talk about. And we're so glad that you're here. This will be really interesting. We've seen him at a couple of other Galaxy Cons. We never got to do a conversation with him, but we are today. So without any further ado, let's welcome Butch Patrick.
Hello.
Hey,
hello.
Good morning.
We're on. Excuse me?
So I want to ask you, a lot of people don't realize that as a young actor, and obviously you started very young, you're working with some really, look, on Real McCoys, you worked with Walter Brennan, you worked with Richard Crenna, on Untouchables, Robert Stack. What's it like for you? Is it intimidating, or are you too young to realize, these are the greats that you're working with?
Growing up, I always played, I looked younger than I actually was physically, so that was great in Hollywood. And mentally, I was a little older as well, so I could memorize lines. But literally, when I first started out, they reached out to me about a movie, and I had some pictures taken on a trip up with my sister, was the focus of the camera. And the guy took a couple photos of me, and he put them in his window, and then a producer and a director saw the picture and tracked me down for this movie. And the answer was, the agent called. My mom said, "Would you like to be in a movie?" And I was in the second grade at the time. And I go, "So what does that mean?" She goes, "It means you won't have to go back to public school for 2 months." I go, "Yeah, I'm in." So that's literally how it all started. It was just accidental. I wasn't intimidated by the process, but I was able to memorize the lines and do what was required, which is really, if you have the look and you can memorize lines and hit your marks, you pretty much got the qualifications. But I was more comfortable around adults than I was kids.
Yeah, and so it's interesting because by the time you get the Munsters, it's such a beloved, iconic TV series, and yet a lot of people don't realize it was only on for 2 seasons, possibly because at that time you would do 40 episodes a season. It was crazy. Do you remember what the workload was like for you? That's all you would work on. The whole season.
Well, we did, yes, 39 episodes was the standard back then for a year. The second year we only did 31 because mainly they kind of knew the show was winding down. They weren't going to do a 3rd season, but a lot of it had to do with Fred Gwynne, who played Herman. His health was suffering because it was such a hot set and his suit was so hot. And he was already a thin, tall guy that it was, for his best interest, they figured, we'll just do the Munster Go Home movie. Instead of doing another 8 episodes, we'll just do a movie, and that's kind of how, and we did it in color. But going off the air after 2 seasons really wasn't that uncommon back in the mid-'60s because of the amount of shows we did. Star Trek, Gilligan's Island, a lot of shows. Lost in Space were only three-year shows, and there were a lot of 2-year shows as well. So we had enough to make a go of it. We did about 8 more episodes in the Addams Family, but 70 episodes seemed to be a good number for us. You made mention of the workload, and when you're a kid, you always have to do 3 hours of school every day, which when you have an hour makeup and then you have an hour for lunch and you have an hour for recreation, and that leaves 5 hours left. Well, 3 hours, that only gives you 2 hours to be on camera. So whenever you see a show that features Eddie, you can guarantee it's being done in the summer when I had no school, which gives them an extra 3 hours to work me.
It's interesting because for a long time, big movie stars wouldn't do television. Now it's de rigueur to, every prestige TV show has a huge movie star. Robert De Niro is doing TV. But at the time, Yvonne DiCarlo was a big actress. She'd done, Criss Cross is brilliant. Obviously 10 Commandments. She did, what was that like? Do you remember, working with her and the experience of working with Yvonne DiCarlo?
It's funny the way it worked out. A lot of things had to come into alignment for me to even be on the show. Number one, they approached Bill Mumy, and Bill Mumy turned it down. I think it was for the makeup, or he was working so much as well. But either way, he was their first choice. I was living in Illinois right after I did the Real McCoys. I moved back there with my grandmother. So I wasn't even in Hollywood at the time. So I missed the whole audition callback. They went through several hundred kids to get to Happy Derman. They did a pilot, and if you're a Munsters fan, you've probably seen it, with Joan Marshall playing Phoebe Munster as opposed to Lily. And the networks, they screened that for the networks to go ahead, and they said, yeah, we're going to greenlight the show, but we want to change out the mom and the child, Eddie and Phoebe. That's when they went to Yvonne DiCarlo. And my agent, Mary Grady, heard that they were looking for an Eddie, and she contacted them. They go, we've looked at every kid in Hollywood. And she goes, well, that's the problem. He's not in Hollywood. And they watched the real McCoys, and they flew me out for a screen test, which I never even went to read. It was directly right to camera with Yvonne. First time I met her. And I think I was the first Munster she actually met, because this was before Fred and Al were even out there. So what happened was, we tested together. We had chemistry. They said, don't go home, make arrangements to stay here. And the funny thing was, my mom had married a baseball player who was traded to the East Coast to the Washington Senators. That left me with nobody in California to live with. So I moved in with my uncle, and we hired a woman to take me to work every week for 2 years. So it was a very weird, hectic process going on, because I was spending more time with my TV family than my real family.
Had you grown up like watching the Universal Monsters? I mean, did this mean anything, or was it just a gig at the time? Was it like, oh, this is great, I'm working? Or was there something special about doing, a monster show?
The main thing I knew that was special about this particular show was the sets and the special effects in the makeup department. We had a lot of special effects. We had a lot of makeup going on. And then the set was actually built. A lot of the sets were built from the 1931 Frankenstein movie. Grandpa's laboratory, for instance, a lot of the lights and the stuff on the wall were from that original movie. And Universal, being the monster studio back in the day that introduced us to all the great, the Frankenstein, Dracula, Wolfman, and so on, they had a style of shooting it, and we were shot so long ago that we were using film, the same type of camera that was used for the monster movies, 30 years prior. So the style and the look of the Munsters actually looked a lot like a movie. The shading, the lighting, the cobwebs, the camera angles. So what they did is, the producers of the show had done Leave It to Beaver, a very successful, family-friendly, from a kid's point of view show, and they morphed it with the Universal Monsters, and it came out, and it worked so well that it was like magical, because nobody really thought it would happen. But I still, to this day, think that one of the reasons the show was so successful, it was quality-driven with good techniques, good sound, good editing, and they had a believable family unit, even though we were supposed to be monsters.
How much of that, when you talk about the special effects, the makeup, the set deck, how they shot it, how much of that changed? Obviously, you went to color when you did Munsters Go Home,
Yep.
but how much of the rest of the process changed? Was it longer shooting? Weeks? Was it as opposed to you've just got a few days to knock out an episode?
Yeah, the big difference on that particular show was because of the breakaway walls and the special effects. They really needed to do it right the first time. Otherwise, it would take like an hour to redress the set. So we rehearsed a lot. The makeup factor in the morning, Fred was obviously the toughest. He had 2 hours every morning. Al and Yvonne were about an hour and a half. I was an hour. But the good news was we shot Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. So literally we were only in makeup 3 days a week. We had the weekend off, and Monday and Tuesday were light read and rehearsal days. I went to school every day, 3 hours regardless, except, in the summertime, which was nice. But, the process itself, because of, it wasn't like videotape where you could do bloopers and redo it. Literally, we were almost like doing Broadway, because we rehearsed it to death to where we had to do it right the first time. And it worked out pretty well.
Does it surprise you? I mean, I would think that it does. I mean, you've done did a bunch of series like Real McCoys. You guest on series, obviously recurring on My Three Sons. And yet, here you are, all these years later, talking about the Munsters. Did you ever think that this show would stand the test of time the way it has? I mean, it's incredible. There's a whole channel devoted to it on streaming.
It was interesting. The 60s was such a great decade. If I had to, I was born in 53. I started working in 60. I kind of backed out of it in 74. But if I had to pick a window, what a great decade to be part of, not only from the television process, because there were shows back in the day that I was lucky enough to participate in, like My Favorite Martian and Mr. Ed and I Dream of Jeannie, these non-reality based shows that were very big hits. And then you had the kind of the silliness of the Beverly Hillbillies and this and that. And the Munsters fit right into that wheelhouse, to where it was just entertainment's value for entertainment's sake. And people loved it, and they gravitated towards it because it was a believable family unit. And today, when people come to the table and interact with me, it's amazing how I was part of so many people's Thursday nights with their loved, with their favorite uncle or their aunt or whatever, because TV used to be the entertainment portal for, weeknights. Movies were kind of like a weekend deal, but, the TV Guide was the Bible for what we were going to be watching after dinner. And we were the kickoff show for Thursday nights. And it's amazing how big of an impact it had on America.
Yeah, it's so funny listening to you say that. I have not until this moment put together that the Munsters, basically the Beverly Hillbillies, but with the Universal Monsters. I mean, it's the same essential setup. It's this strange little family that's in the middle of all of this normalcy, and they're the ones we're rooting for, and everybody else seems like they're the problem. I mean, it's pretty brilliant.
Well, not only that, but if you really look at it closely, number one, you never really looked at Herman as Frankenstein. As soon as he spoke, he was Herman Munster. He looked like Frankenstein, but you definitely knew he was not Frankenstein. And Grandpa was not Dracula. A believable family unit. But if you really look deeply, it has some social commentary overtones of people didn't want to live next door to the Munsters in the 60s. And there was a lot of stuff going on in social upheaval in America. So they kind of soft-handedly, it was sort of like, don't judge a book by its cover. Our beautiful blonde niece, who we looked at her as an unfortunate one, she loved us as family while the rest of the town looked as monsters to avoid. So there was a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah. It's interesting because people always pit things against each other. It's like, especially there was like when Dante's Peak came out against Volcano, or, Octopussy came out and Never Say Never Again, same James Bond movie, same year. You came out the same time as the Addams Family. Was there a rivalry at all between the two shows?
Never had it been done before, but it actually helped both of us. The Addams Family was as you know, in the New Yorker, they were a comic strip. So they had basically a following. So they actually had, there was already motion going on. So when they came on the air, they had a following. Now, the Munsters came on the air because they heard about the Addams Family being done. But literally, Bob Clampett, who was an animator for Beanie and Cecil and this and that, he created the Munsters as a cartoon in the early 50s. And submitted it. It just never got traction, and it sat around. So what the producers of Leave It to Beaver did is when they saw the Addams Family, they resurrected Bob Clampett's thing, but made it live action with real people. And that's kind of how the show got going. And they came out on Thursday night, and we came out on Friday night. But the good news is even though you may have preferred one or the other, we both helped each other's existence because you watched us both. You just had a favorite.
Absolutely. And any things you remember? You're so young. It's always interesting when you interview somebody who did something very young. It's like, how much do they actually remember? But my question is something like the iconic car, which was George Barris. Yeah. I mean, obviously that's something. I think Corgi made it. It's beloved by people. As a kid, I would think that's something like really exciting to be on the set and have this cool car and stuff.
Fred Gwynne was an amazing man, an amazing actor, and Al Lewis too. But they were like opposites as a comedy team. You have to have two different sides to bounce it off. And Fred was Harvard and very educated, and Al was more like circus folk and vaudeville. But together they were very funny. But for me as a kid working with them, what they did early on is they noticed that Herman being 7 foot tall and me being extremely small, it made for a very funny father and son dynamic. And then the fact that they learned that I could take dialogue, and they started writing scripts that featured Eddie volunteering Dad for something and Dad never wanting to disappoint Eddie. We did a lot of father and son shows. So I learned a lot of acting techniques from Fred. Now, Al, he took the time to toss a baseball with me, let me get outside, throw a Frisbee, and he taught me a lot about sports. He was a huge sports nut, and he taught me a lot about life. So while I was there doing the show, I actually was around very positive energy and learned a lot of good things, both professionally and socially. And Yvonne DiCarlo, getting back to her again, being a movie star, I mean, she was so powerful, and a lot of people thought that she couldn't do comedy, and she did it spectacularly. But in my opinion, I think she was the secret weapon that made that show fly, because she held the household together, and she was the matriarch and a powerhouse name to be Yvonne DiCarlo, movie star. But she was huge in that respect, that she balanced it out very nicely. So all the antics of the boys in the dungeon, while she held court upstairs and made sure everybody, towed the line. And it worked out well.
Yeah, as the matriarch, she's really the heart of that show.
Yep.
Because Herman is sort of befuddled the whole time, and and Grandpa Munster is off doing his crazy experiments. But she really is the heart of the family, and she's such a great performance.
Well, I agree, and to get back to her dropping into television, the reason she did that show, a lot of people don't know this. She was married to a stuntman named Bob Morgan, and Bob Morgan was terribly maimed in a stunt gone wrong in How the West Was Won, and he was in the hospital for like a year, and the Stuntman's Association didn't cover his medical bills. So literally, she depleted her fortune taking care of her husband, and she went to work on the Munsters as a necessity to get back to work. And that's what she did. And this was before Elizabeth Taylor did, General Hospital. I mean, she was a movie star going into TV when TV was second-class citizenship for Hollywood. And I think that she opened a lot of doors for people to take a second look at being on television.
The Munsters wasn't your only iconic show. I mean, a lot of us who grew up in that era will never forget or be terrified by Charles Nelson Riley and Lidsville. How did Sid, when you sat down and he pitched you doing the show, convince you? Because it's such a insane premise.
Three things happened on that. First, Sid didn't get involved until the last go around. I turned Marty down twice. I mean, it was just one of those things. I had just gotten out of high school. I had a movie gone south on me in 71 that I thought I was going to be a movie star, and the movie got shelved because of a Hollywood divorce between Rhonda Fleming and Hall Bartlett. So it went from movie star going to the Oscars, getting nominated for Best Supporting Actor to Lidsville. And I literally turned it down twice until the Cowsills. I was going to high school with the Cowsills. They straightened me out, and John said, "You never turn down work in Hollywood. What's wrong with you?" And then he goes, "It's Saturday morning. Nobody will ever see it." So on that note, I went out and I looked at the studio and I met Marty, and then finally Sid stepped in. And he took me for a ride up to Hollywood Boulevard, and we had lunch together, and he's driving a Corvette, and I had a Corvette, and I go, okay, it's only 11 weeks. And the paycheck was good. I mean, it was really good money for 11 weeks work. But I saw a picture of the Bugaloos, and I saw Caroline Ellis on the wall. And I go, does she ever hang around here? Oh, yeah, she comes in all the time. She lived in Europe. She was never going to be around. And he lied to me, thinking that I would meet Caroline Ellis, and that sealed the deal.
Instead, you just got to meet Billy Hayes.
Yeah, and I got to say with Charles Riley and Billy Hayes. But I did get to hang around Sharon Baird, who was Raunchy Rabbit, who was very, very sweet, and a Mouseketeer. So it all worked out.
And then, another, cult classic that you were involved with, Chuck Jones and the Phantom Toll Booth. How did you get involved with that? And do you remember anything about working with Chuck?
Sitting back there listening to the song "Time Ticks" brought back some funny memories. That was just an interview that Mary sent me on, and then I got excited because Chuck Jones was a huge force in animation, and his cartoons, I watched them, and then the neat part about getting that part was the fact that I got to sit in the studio and do voiceover work with the A-listers of voiceover, all the people, the voices of my favorite characters in cartoons, when Mel Blanc, Dawes Butler, June Foray, she was Rocky, Rocky and Bullwinkle, and she did everything. And so I was lucky enough for 2 years, because what they would do is every 3 or 4 months I would have to go in and do another, maybe 10 or 15 minutes of voiceover while they'd animate it. So for about 1.5 to 2 years, I would visit MGM occasionally and sit in the booth with the A-listers that all got together for Chuck. And the fact that I got to work with him in the live action and the beginning of the movie and the end of the movie, he actually did a cameo, like a Hitchcock sit down next to me in the cable car. I loved doing that movie. It was great. It was I think it was probably one of the best pieces. And it was Chuck's only animated movie. So I got very lucky.
How did you prepare or just do the records differently in terms of your acting process and, how you presented your character when you were voice acting versus being on camera? Like, what lessons did you have to unlearn from camera for voice?
I have a tendency to talk fast. So one of the things that I really had to do was noticeably put my foot on the brake and talk like this, because it would be too difficult to do animation if I talk at my normal speed. So that was one. Number two, it was very funny to watch these people do their shtick. And a couple of times my mom was with me, and she had to leave the room because she was making me laugh, because when he was like singing "Time Ticks Away," if you're actually watching a guy do that, it's pretty hilarious. You don't really get this, you don't see the whole result, but the process of it, people in a soundproof room dancing around doing this, it could be pretty funny. And another thing is, I don't sing. That was the original Munster Manila. They would hire kids to do my singing because I couldn't carry a tune.
But you were brought up, watching Bugs Bunny and all the great Chuck Jones cartoons. Working alongside Mel Blanc must have been just amazing.
What was that?
Mel Blanc.
Oh yeah, exactly. Mel Blanc was there a lot. That was he was like you talk about a guy that could come up with a million voices. He was amazing. It was so much fun, and I was so proud of it because it was a great book. And I had the pleasure of meeting Norman Juster before he passed. And then I've done some screenings where you get people that are book people that are movie people, Chuck Jones animator fans, and Munster fans all in the same room during a screening, and it's really a good time because of the nature of the book being so important to a lot of people's education. I think it's a 5th or 6th grade level reading book.
Yeah, it's a great book, and if you haven't read it out there,
yeah, please do.
Please do.
And there's also, if you're really into books, look up Fred Gwynne. Fred Gwynne did some of the greatest children's books you're ever going to get, and if you ever want to look for a great gift for that niece or nephew or kid, check out Fred Gwynne. He did about 9 children's books that are just spectacular.
Well, and people forget how versatile as an actor he was. I mean, he was brilliant before and after, and yet he's so associated with the Munsters. But it's just he was such a versatile performer. He could do anything, even at his height, which was he
was very tall.
You would think it would sort of pigeonhole him for certain kinds of roles. He could do anything.
Well, it's funny. There's an actor named Robert Wool who is artist and stuff, and I wanted to meet him. So we're in the green room, and as I'm walking towards him, he's walking towards me, and he stops. He goes, Butch, I got to ask you a question. Yeah. He goes, were you aware as a child of the greatness of Mr. Fred Gwynne, that he was around and how lucky you were to be working with him? And I said, probably not as much as I should have, but I mean, he was well recognized by his peers as just being a solid talent Renaissance man, an artist, a musician, an actor, stage, TV, movies. He could do it all.
Yeah, and it's funny because the Emmys traditionally don't recognize comedy the way they do drama. But I mean, that's an Emmy-worthy performance that he gave in the Munsters. I mean, he's really great in that.
He kind of did it too well because it kind of hounded him the rest of his life. Where Grandpa Munster embraced it and opened up Grandpa's restaurant and went on to have a career. Grandpa's Comedy Club, running for governor in New York City. I mean, he looked like Grandpa walking down the street with or without makeup. Unfortunately, Fred, it sort of typecast him, I guess. His voice, he would immediately, in a movie theater, if he popped up in one of his movies, everybody, Fred Gwynne, Herman Munster. But he did such a great job that at the end of his life, he was okay with it. But there was a time when he didn't want to be seen with anybody that was on the show because the immediate question would be about the Munsters, and he was trying to distance himself from that.
Did obviously there have been attempts to resurrect it several times, some with the original cast, later on with other casts. Any thoughts about, can you go home again? I mean, were the reunion movies fun for you to do and see everyone again after, some time had passed? After Munster to Go Home, there was the reunion movie. I think was there a Christmas special? Or there was
Munster's Revenge, it actually had Fred and Al and Yvonne in it. That was done in 1979. And the reason that happened, I found out, was they contacted Fred Gwynne, and they said, would you do another Munster movie? He goes, it would cost you too much money. And they said, well, give me a number. And he gave him a number, and they accepted it. So he literally was caught off guard. So he had to do it. Now, didn't have to, but he did. Then that's how we reconnected with Al. I did anyway, with Al and Fred, was during that shoot. I went out and saw them as a fan on the street and walked up to him, and Al recognized me, and Fred just had his eyes closed. He goes, hello, Butch. And Al's going, Fred, it's Butch, and Fred do it. And that's how we reconnected. And then after that, they did The Scary Little Christmas with Sam McMurray. That's an Australian version. Then they did the Munsters Today, the series in the 80s. And then they did one with Edward Herman playing Herman Munster, where we all did a cameo at the restaurant with him as our waiter, that was very surreal. Because the idea of the 4 characters who were alive sitting at a table, and the best Herman my opinion, the recreation. I mean, Jeff Daniel Phillips did a good one, but Edward Herman probably did the best Herman Munster recreation. And he comes up to take our order at a restaurant scene, and we're all sitting there together, and his name happens to be Herman. It's just, you can't write this stuff. And that was fine. So we've had several types of regrouping. And then the Rob Zombie movie, Pat and I did voiceover work for Rob's version recently. So it's been around a long time.
Are you surprised when you find out, like, somebody like Rob Zombie? I mean, Rob did a certain kind of horror movie, right? And then he says, "Hey, I'm going to do the Munsters because I'm such a huge fan." Does it surprise you when you find out certain people are these longtime fans of the Munsters? I mean, Rob Zombie, that was not on my bingo card that he was a huge Munsters fan.
Yeah, I know that they had been trying to do it. The Wayans brothers had the inside track on that for years. I don't think the content that they were supplying Universal with, the script, was acceptable because Universal is very protective of the Munsters franchise. And to this day, it's new licenses, new toys. It goes out there. It's very, very close to their heart. Rob, being a fan of the show, I mean, he didn't do it because he wanted to make money. He wanted to do it as his version, as a tribute and a departure from his normal stuff. And see, I didn't know that. Did you know that Rob was like the production design guy on Pee-wee's Playhouse? Yeah. I mean, so when I found that out, I go, well, he's not a one-trick pony. He can do other stuff. So when I went in to do my voiceover thing, I hadn't seen anything about it, and when he showed me my clip that I was going to do, it looked like a Tim Burton movie to me. The colors, the pastels, and the texture. So I went, "Oh, this is cool. This is going to be like Edward Scissorhands or something. This is neat." And I love the idea that he did the storyline of how Herman and Lily met, and I was happy to be part of it. I just told people, don't try to put Rob's style over here as you're going to want this, or you're going to want the original Munsters. Look at it right down the middle for entertainment value, and you'll be good. Right. Because it was entertainment. It was entertaining. No, it wasn't the Munsters, and no, it wasn't Land of 1,000 Corpses or Devil's Rejects. But it was
that version would be entertaining.
It was entertaining, and if you just allow yourself not to have preconceived notions and look at it for entertainment's sake, you're good.
Well, I know you guys must have a lot of questions too. So if you want to walk up to the mic over here and.
I can't quite hear you.
She wants to know how you got into acting.
How to get into acting?
Yeah, you're.
Interesting story about that. In 1960, there was my little sister went up for a photo shoot. They took a couple pictures of me, and they basically sought me out to do The Two Little Bears, was a movie with Eddie Albert and Jane Wyatt were my parents. Brenda Lee was 15-year-old sitting sensation, was my older sister. Soupy Sales was the comic relief cop. Nancy Culp, Miss Hathaway, was a school teacher. So we had this great little B movie that got me 6 weeks work, and it got me comfortable in acting because I had never done it before. And during that 6 weeks, I picked up a commercial for Kellogg's Corn Flakes. And then right after that, General Hospital, I did the first month of General Hospital. So in Hollywood, once you got a few credits and you're on, you're moving. And Mary Grady, the interesting part, my agent her son was Don Grady, who was Robbie on My Three Sons. And she worked for an adult agency, a typical agency. And she was the world's first child-only talent agency. And other than her son, Don, I was her first client. So as she started getting better and better, she started picking up other clients. But I was her, other than her son, I was her first paying gig. And a lot of times when my mom wasn't around, I would stay with Mary at her house with Don and Lonnie. Her daughter became Lonnie O'Grady from 8 is Enough, and Mary Lou. They're all gone except Mary Lou now. But I was and she was my only agent forever. I mean, I never wanted another one. We were dear friends, and she was great. I was lucky enough to be around some good people at the get-go.
And at that time, for child actors, they're basically looking for somebody who's not going to freeze up in front of the camera and remember their lines. Yep. So once you have a couple of things under your belt, you're in.
The interesting thing, I don't know, am I doing this wrong? But the interesting thing about it for me was I was very lucky. I would they would give you a script. You'd usually just go to the interview. They'd give it to you. You'd sit outside for 15 minutes, try to get your page or two down. And for me, I was lucky that about 90% of the time, my interpretation was pretty close to what they wanted. That was the easy part. The trick is, if you're going to continue to work, you have to be able to adjust to what they want. So if what you're doing isn't what they want and they coach you, you need to tweak it on the spot. And I was pretty good at doing that. So for me, my batting average of going to interviews and getting hired versus not getting hired was about 50-50, which is pretty darn good because a lot of times, there's kids that have been on 20, 30 interviews and never got hired. And I couldn't have taken that. If I was not getting hired, I would have just given it up because it wasn't a calling. It was more of a way to make some money to save for my race car that I wanted to have when I was going to be 10 years older. So I really kind of felt bad for kids that would, I'd have 2 or 3 interviews in a day sometimes, and Mary would make sure that when I got there, I would walk in before them because I had to be somewhere else. And you would hear the stage mothers go, "Oh, goddamn, Butch Patrick's here," grumble, grumble, grumble. And it was like there was a few kids that worked a lot. Bill Mooney worked a lot. There were the Corcorans over at Disney worked a lot. So I was lucky that I had a knack for it, and I didn't freeze up, and I was adult-like, and I wasn't a liability. Let's put it that way. If they hired me, they knew that they would not have to redo a lot of scenes.
And you could do drama and comedy, which is some kids can only do comedy or only do drama, but you could move between both.
Yeah, I was more of a comedy guy, but I did a lot of drama. I did some drama stuff, and I played a good mean kid. I love doing westerns. I could ride a horse. Before I started acting, people would say, "Did anybody in your family get you into it?" And the closest thing that I had to someone in the business was my uncle supplied horses to the westerns, but his son was a stuntman, and he was Zorro's stunt double. And Zorro, to me, at that time in 1962, that was like a superhero.
Right, that's your Batman.
Zorro was the man.
Was there anything that you auditioned for when you were a kid that you didn't get that still sticks in your craw to this day?
2 things. One was a movie called Summer Magic at Disney because it starred Haley Mills, and I had a huge crush on Haley Mills. Man, back in the day, Haley Mills was the go-to gal for me, and I really, really, really wanted to work with her, and I didn't get that. And then number 2, I never really got an interview for Star Trek, and I wanted to do Star Trek, and I wanted to do a Twilight Zone. I never got to do either one of those. And there was one Star Trek where literally there was like a whole planet of kids. I mean, it was like, how could I miss out on this? There was like 14 kids in this show, and I didn't get a part. And then I also wanted to do the Cowboys with John Wayne because I felt I could ride a horse, and I like doing westerns. I like being outdoors, and I didn't get that one as well. So those are the 3 that kind of got away. And I turned down American Graffiti.
Oh, wow.
Oh, you did? Now, is there a story in that? Why you turned down American Graffiti?
I had hair down to here. I just finished Lidsville, and George Lucas found me out, and the first thing out of his mouth was, "You're going to have to cut that hair." I said, "No, thank you." And he says, "But it's a great little movie." I'm sure it is. Good luck. And I later found out that the role that I probably would have been reading for was Richard Dreyfuss's part. But everybody in Hollywood, any star you talk to will have a couple of stories of the ones that got away. But 2 years later, when I saw that movie on the screen, I was like, "Oh my God, what a mistake. What a mistake."
Never turned down work.
Oh, and then my mom asked why I never got an interview for Star Wars. I kind of told him no, and I don't think he's going to reach out to me.
You did dodge a bullet with that Star Trek episode. It's a pretty bad episode. And the children shall eat. Other questions for Butch?
Well, I have a question, and then I also had like a little short story. Not story, but just an observation. But I'm just wondering if you you still have the Dragula with you? Your car? The Dragula?
He wants to know if you still have the Dragula, the car.
Oh, I have a Dragula. The Dragula is in my car club. My club brother owns it. My Dragula is exactly the same except for 2 things. Number 1, it has a automatic versus the 4-speed, and mine's got 500 horse, and the original only has 300 horse. So mine's an actual dragster that looks like the Dragula, and I have a Munster coach as well, but not the original.
Okay, and then the other thing is,
I do a lot of car stuff.
I do special needs, special Olympics, and one of the things that makes your show special to us is like we have a variety of people, Down syndrome, autism, cognitive disabilities, and during some lunch breaks, what I started showing them like 3 years ago were the Munsters.
Oh.
And a lot of them really love it. And there's one young lady that she's not really interactive with people. She's very to herself. But when we put on the Munsters, when the first day that we had it, was like 3 years ago, I used to look around and we're like, showing my staff, like, look at so-and-so. I can't say her name, but, and she's laughing. And the whole time every time we put it on, she's involved in it and laughing with it. So it's just the impact you guys have made
That's great.
Even up to this time. So
what was that?
Even up to this time, it's your shows is still making an impact. So.
Well, that's great news. Thank you. A lot of people really enjoy it, and I've been asked, if there's ever been an interaction with someone that stands out. I was going to do a radio interview for something maybe 10 years ago, and as I went to the radio station, the receptionist was a young girl, maybe 20 years old, and she told me, she goes, when I was a little girl, I had severe depression, like suicidal type depression, and the only thing when I would feel it coming on, is she goes, I would run in my room and put on the Munsters, and it kept me feeling happy, and that things were okay. I wish I could be on the show, but the depression would go away, and apparently comedy and a strong family unit, and then because you feel like isolated, that you're unusual and you're not normal. Well, you can't find a much non-normal family than the Munsters. So if you could watch that, and people could watch it and find it that they are not alone, and that it's okay, and it's going to be this and it's going to be that. Apparently, it was therapeutic for a lot of people, like you were talking about. So thank you.
No, that's great. I mean, and obviously, it's a family that didn't care what other people thought of them, and it's such a good message. It's like they let their freak flag fly, and it didn't matter what other people thought.
It made it very easy to write. It was an interesting dynamic too, because of the comedy angle. I don't know what I'm doing. Sorry about that. The scripts would be really not that funny, because the things that they could get away with. It's almost like when you write for animation, cartoons, you can say stuff on cartoons you can't say in real. Why that is, I don't know. But Herman Munster would be a scene where you're enough to wake the living, or you're going to sleep at night and in the daytime, and you're staying up all night. They would just have all these little catch-22 entendres that they would utilize, and it was funny because it was happening to Herman Munster, and it wouldn't be funny the other way around. So we were lucky enough to have good comedy writers, but we were really lucky to have great guest stars want to participate and come on. And I mean, we had early Don Rickles. We had Harvey Korman did 2 episodes. We had Frank Gorshin. We had a lot of great people. John Carradine, a classic actor, was Mr. Gateman. He did lots of episodes as Herman's boss. So we had no problem in filling the scripts with good people. And then, of course, we had George Barris's cars, as you mentioned, the Dragula and the Munster coach, along with the special effects people. Davey and Chuck went on to work with Steven Spielberg and George Lucas, respectively. And don't forget, we had the Westmore family overseeing the makeup. Right. And the Westmores were like, they were like the Barrymores of acting. Every studio had a Westmore at the head of their makeup department. And we had 2. We had Bud, we had 3, because Mike Westmore came in and worked with me as an apprentice. And, Mike Westmore went on to do Star Trek: The Next Generation, the Oscar for Mask, Raging Bull. I mean, one of the greatest stuntmen, one of the greatest makeup people in the world. And I was lucky enough to be his buddy when he was 21-year-old apprentice.
Well, I'm surprised that nobody's asked your favorite Marilyn yet. I was waiting for that question.
Yeah, I had a crush on Beverly Owen, the first Marilyn. She was just so sweet, so nice. And she was out there against her will. She went out to do a pilot. Her agent told her the show would never get picked up. Pick up the paycheck and be home in a week. Here she winds up on a hit show, living with Fred Gwynne and his wife, Foxy. And she was so unhappy that Fred and Al went to the producers and said, "You've got to let her go home. This is like harsh and unusual punishment." The producers said, "No way. She's an integral part of the show. It's all about this beautiful blonde and her wacky family, and we're not going to risk it." And Fred and Al basically strong-armed him. I believe Al grabbed him, one of the producers, by the neck and said, "If you don't let her go, we'll quit, and then you won't even have a show." So they relinquished. She went back.
That's how the Friends did it when they renegotiated.
Yep. She went back to New York. She married her sweetie that she was homesick from. He went on. He was a Captain Kangaroo producer. I think his name was Dave Stone. The good news was he went on to create Sesame Street. So they had much success together.
Well, you don't mess with Herman Munster, so that's...
Don't mess with Big Bird. I think it was more like Al. It's like Al Lewis, his restaurant in Greenwich Village was called Grandpa's, but John Gotti owned it. Oh, wow. Right? Yeah. He was just the front man. You go to work, here's your paycheck, here's your envelope, but it was Gotti. It was a Gotti restaurant.
Wow.
Al was connected.
Well, any final questions before we wrap up? This was really great. We thank you so much for coming, Butch.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you all
for all these memories. And we're back.
Yeah.
We're back. That
he
was a good
Butch
interview.
And he was Patrick, which is a nice combination.
He was nice guy. And it was a good interview. And I think he really appreciated it. I think he's used to getting asked the same 5 questions. And obviously, as we all, as Treksperts, try to avoid that. So it was a lot of fun. And of course, if you're looking to join us at a future GalaxyCon event, go to galaxy.com. We're going to be in New Orleans very, very soon. And then, of course, Darren will be at Raleigh. Ashley will be in San Jose. And we'll be back in St. Louis. So a lot of great stuff coming up. We hope you'll join us at one or all of these great GalaxyCon events. And until then, Darren, what do we say?
Well, we say thanks for joining us and fire the rockets.
Ah!
Deck 78 is an exclusive podcast from Treksperts Plus.